And every day I would wake up, I'd be like, this is my life. This is my life. I'm so happy. And for the first time, really, I had really found joy in being me, and not who I was or what I was doing, but really in my soul, it was me and how I was finding really joy and happiness.
Hello, everyone. I am your host, Lion, and I am so passionate about inspiring more women to break the stereotypes of fear. In this episode, I'm joined by the amazing Rochelle Rosen, who transformed herself so much. Life and the successive choices she made changed her from a spoiled princess who had never traveled alone into a solo backpacker who traveled the African continent and the world independently. I hope this conversation inspires you to make the choice, however small, to step out of your comfort zone and to experience solo travel if you haven't, or engage in more solo travel if it's been a while. Thank you. Thank you so much for making the time. And thank you so much to the audience for tuning in. I would love to begin by introducing you, taking a few minutes to introduce you, if that's okay.
Sure.
So, Rochelle grew up in North Miami with a Jewish heritage, spent time close to the water growing up. Her and her family, traveled, frequently. As a child, she spent quite some time traveling through the Caribbean, Mexico. In high school, she spent a semester in Israel. And then in college, she spent a semester at sea. And basically, she was very entrepreneurial from a young age, and went to school half the day and worked half the day as a result of this program that she had at school. And as a result of it, she discovered the world of optics. And basically, as part of having her first job in high school at the age of 14, she started working in this optical store back before the world of lens crafters and these like very commercial corporate chains, and went through a lot of grunt work. She learned the business from A to Z and found passion in it. Fast forward, later in high school, she had an accident and with a FedEx truck, and as a result, got
Actually in
some
college.
money. Oh, it was in college. And got some money as part of a settlement, and basically ended up using the funds from the settlement to start a business with her colleague at the time. Not only that, she went to college while running her business. She started with one store and then expanded to 3 stores, and served clients like Julio Iglesias, Madonna, and Whitney Houston, and obviously became fairly successful fairly early, in life, while her friends were, some of her friends were still in law school. So, how does that sound for an introduction? Is there anything else that you'd like to add, Rochelle?
No, that was pretty good. I went to FSU, and as you said, I worked in the optical stores every opportunity that I had. As a kid, I learned, they thought they found a real worker bee to do all the grunt work and the polishing and the cleaning of the machines and cutting and all that kind of stuff. And it turned into something that became a passion of like an artistry for me. So when I would go into an optical store and I would see people's glasses, I knew I could literally changed the way the image, the look, I even had a program once where people would, because our glasses were quite expensive. So I would tell them, look, don't ask me the price. Let me create a look for you. And if you don't love it, if it doesn't change your life, you don't have to pay for it. And I did that for a lot of people, and literally people would send me flowers. I mean, I still 20 years later have people calling me, asking me for advice on frames. Will I go shopping with them? Will I help them? And it was a very unusual and unique experience, and I loved it.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. So basically, before we get into it, would you like to share with the audience the story of how you and I met?
Sure. We were at a birthday party, and it was over food. I believe I was creating take-home packages for people towards the end of the party, and I was mixing up all the different foods that were left over so it didn't go to waste. And I was asking, we started talking about what you were eating and had you tasted this and had you tasted that, and somehow it blossomed into this experience and this friendship. And you just never know from where friendships form, and in every opportunity there is a rose. So this is our rose.
Yeah, fantastic. So Rochelle, getting back to it, in some ways, as the introduction pointed out, you were leading a picture perfect life, and we sort of have advertised today's episode as somebody who's a solo traveler who's traveled the world. So what happened, Rochelle, that was so monumentary in your life that changed the trajectory so much? Because it sounds like you were headed very much on a trajectory of entrepreneurship and success in that realm.
Absolutely. Yes, I did have people used to call. I did also get married quite young, and we were like the Barbie and Ken. We had a beautiful home. I had this very successful business. My husband was also quite successful. We were living the dream. And one day, my father, who was my best friend and just the light of my life, was diagnosed with 10 days to live. And I can't explain to you the shock level of that, hearing those words. And he had an untimely passing. And before that, I spent quite a bit of time trying to help him and save him and find a way to let, extend his lifetime. And during that time, I spent a lot of time away from my business. We also had a hurricane at that time. Hurricane Andrew came and devastated a lot. Oops. And we had a lot of things happen. And when my father passed away, I was obviously consumed with grief. And I came back to my business, my life, and my marriage was kind of falling apart. My partner was stealing from me, and my father had just passed away, and I was crushed. Through a meal, even I would be out for dinner with a friend and having a good time, and somebody would come up to me and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry about your father. Oh, I can't believe what happened with the business." So through a big lawsuit, I was having my partner investigated, and I was forced to not go into the business for 6 weeks. We had a litigator come in, and forensic accounting coming in, and they said neither one of the partners could come in. And so I thought to myself, what will I do for 6 weeks? How will I spend 6 weeks without, going into my business? So my brother was living in Australia at the time, and I decided to go visit him. And I flew over, and I spent the first few days with him, and he was like, "Okay, I got to go back to work. You're on your own." I said, "On my own? 6 weeks? I'm here for 5 more weeks. What do you mean?" He's like, just go out just walk around, and you'll see like tourist agencies, and you'll find activities, and you'll be fine. I had never done anything on my own ever before. And so I was not going to be, I said, "Okay, I'll go walk around." And I wandered around for the first day or so and saw a couple of places, and I saw an interesting spot. And I went back the next day, and it was like a cafe. And a lot of people were there, and there was all kinds of posters and activities and fun things. And I thought, okay, let me go check it out. So I went in, started asking some questions, and there was a bunch of nice people, and they were doing some shots. And so I joined in on the celebration of whatever it was. And suddenly I was amongst a group of people that were hugging and nice. You know, I didn't know these people. Why were they touching me? And I'm like, And we just all started talking. And I realized that, you know, this cafe was attached to something that was called a youth hostel, which I had never, you know, I didn't know what that was. And these people were all backpackers and traveling the world. And, you know, the term backpacker to me, you know, made me think of this homeless people at the bus stations back at the Greyhound in Fort Lauderdale or whatever. I had no idea that a backpacker was, you know, this incredible person that was experiencing the world on their own terms. And so I listened to these people, and I went back the next day and saw these girls again. And they invited me to, I told them what was going on and that I was here, and my brother was just deserted me, and what was I going to do? And poor me, you know, and they were like, that's amazing. You know, now you have the opportunity to come with us. So I said, okay, I'll come. And they were getting on this hop on, hop off bus. And I said, okay, I'll do it. I go home to my brother, all proud of myself. Like, I have a plan and I'm going to go do something. Ha, ha, ha. I'm going by myself, and bye. I'll see you later. And again, this was the time before phones. There was no cell phones. There was no internet, you know, so there was really no way for anybody to communicate. If, God forbid, I was killed, nobody would know about it for weeks. But I went, and we got on this bus, and I wheeled up the next day with my fancy rolling to-me bag and my cute hair and my matching scrunchies and my socks. And I was like the Private Benjamin of the backpackers. And everybody else was like in gray and khaki and grungy. And I was like, hi. And I realized immediately that that was not like the way to behave. I was like, I was going to have to alter my, you know, like I got on the bus, and I just kind of started observing, and I was just sort of taken aback by the introspect and the people and what they were talking about. And I really had no idea. These were such intelligent people, and they had such life experiences, and it was so incredible. And they had this sense of the world that I had never seen before. And they weren't homeless people, you know, they were people from all walks of life. They were families, they were college graduates, they were students, they were people taking a gap year, there were people who had just been in the army, people who had life near-death experiences, and everybody was out there seeking something different. So we get to our first stop, and I don't see any hotels, and I'm like, where do we go? And she's like, oh, you go into these little houses. And I thought, why do they all have toilet signs? Toilets on every house has a toilet sign. And I said to my friend, do they go to the bathroom in these houses? And she's like, no. Why do you say that? And I said, because it says toilet on all the houses. She says, that says to let. That means to rent. That means that those are houses that you can go to, and they'll let you sleep in their rooms. I'm like, what? You know, so we go into one of these houses, and sure enough, they have these rooms with bunk beds, and they're shared rooms, and you go in, it's about $2. And you go in, and they have a kitchen and bathrooms and beds, and it's fun, and community, and that's it. It's $2, and you sleep, and you're safe, and it's wonderful. And that was my first night of experiencing that kind of a lifestyle. And I continued on with these girls for about 4 weeks. We went all through Australia. We went to the Great Barrier Reef. We went everywhere. And on the trip to the Great Barrier Reef, I met a girl that was what you would consider like an emo kind of girl. And she ended up being my roommate, because I was the only one that was a certified diver. I went on a different trip than the other girls that I had been traveling with. And this emo girl, who was definitely someone that I would have never interacted with in my normal life, she was really silent. She had like these weird braids all over her hair and black, makeup, and just odd. And she was just always looking at me. And I got up on the deck, and I'm chatting with all the people on the ship and talking about how great I am and, my business and my successes and everything. And one day she and I were up on the deck alone, and she kind of cornered me. And I really credit her. I thought she was a little bit of a warlock, but I do credit her with changing my life, because she kind of cornered me and said to me, you think you're so, great. You've done so much. She says, but she's like, why don't you write down all the things that you've done? Write them down, and let's see. I'm going to write down who I am, and you write down what you've done. So I write down, I'm busy writing. I'm an optical, and my stores, and my success, and how I've done this, and how I've done that, and that. And she takes my piece of paper afterwards. She reads it out, and she's like, wow. And then she holds it up, and she takes a lighter, and she burns it. And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, okay. She's like, that's all gone. Now who are you? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, if you can't talk about any of that, talk about you. And I really didn't know how to answer her. And then she grabbed me by my face, and she wrapped this bandana around my head. She's like, what's your favorite color? I was like, purple. She goes, why? Why is purple your favorite color? I was like, because I like it. No. She's like, cover yourself in purple, drown yourself in purple. And what does it make you feel? And I honestly couldn't, I had no idea what she was talking about. It was scaring me. And she just kept doing this until I finally started to cry. And then she took my blindfold off, and she said to me, you have to figure out the answers to those questions. Then you'll know who you are. And I was like, traumatized, honestly. But I couldn't stop thinking about her, and I couldn't stop thinking about that experience. And we continued our trip, and I continued the next few weeks, and I went home, and I couldn't stop thinking about answering those questions. And I went home, and again, people started going, oh, I'm so sorry. And at that point, I had the opportunity, my accountant for the business, I had the opportunity when we were going to court to win this case and win my businesses back and sue and get money and retributions and all of those things. But my accountant gave me some good advice, and he said to me, you're very young. You've done so much in your young life already. You could do all of this again if that's what you want to do. But if you take all of this, this is it. This is going to be what you do for the rest of your life. Imagine, is this what you want for the next 40 or 50 years? I was like, no, I don't think so. And so I ended up selling the business to a bigger corporation that came in that was going to fund my stealing partner. And I got divorced, and I was suddenly free. And as a matter of fact, this is something you don't know, but I was living in a penthouse apartment, and somebody came and knocked on my door wanting to buy my apartment in cash, including all my furniture. And I was like, what? And I thought to myself, this must be the universe telling me, it's giving me every opportunity to go on a trip and explore and find myself. And so I started to say to people, well, I'm going to go backpacking around the world. I met these people when I was over in Australia, and that's what they were doing. I'm going to do it. It seems amazing. And people were laughing at me. They were like, you're never going to do that. You're going to go from, Hyatt to Hyatt maybe, or Ritz-Carlton. I'm like, no. I'm seriously going to backpack. I'm going to stay in these things called youth hostels. And it's like $4 and $2 and $5, and they're amazing. And people were just like, you're never going to do that. I'm like, yeah, I am. So a few weeks later, I heard more people coming up to me, and for the first time in like a year, saying, instead of saying, oh, I'm so sorry about, your husband, or I'm so sorry about your business, or I'm so sorry about your father, they say, I heard you're going backpacking around the world. Is that true? I'm like, yes, it is. And for the first time, I felt joy. And I was like, wow, I'm going to do this. And then I realized I better start planning this trip, because I was going to have to live up to what I was saying. And so I started planning this journey out, and I had it all planned, and figured out, I was going to go for 1 year, thinking that I probably wouldn't really make it for a year, because it was kind of not my thing. I didn't know what to do and how to do it, but I was going to figure it out. And so off I went. And actually, about a couple of weeks before my journey, my best girlfriend had an incident. She wasn't getting along well with her boyfriend, and her car got stolen. And so suddenly she was going to get a check from the insurance company for around $18,000. And she called me up and she was like, are you really going to go on that trip around the world? And I said, yeah. She's like, do you think if I have 18,000, can I come with you? And I said, come on, pack your bags, come on down. And she came down and we started planning, and I showed her what we were doing and what I was planning. And she was like, I'm in. And she's like, I don't know, what, but I'm in.
So if I may, I want to like call attention to something that you said earlier, which was you were talking about when you were in Australia and your brother deserted you. I didn't realize that until that point, you had never really wandered alone. You were used to being in company and exploring in company. Additionally, when you were talking about, your friends kind of dismissing you by saying, oh, you probably, just jumped from Hyatt to Hyatt, and also earlier how you showed up in a $600 piece of luggage, how, that you were stereotypically this Jewish American princess. For those of you who don't know, JAP is an acronym that you can look up, and
I am the epitome.
arguably,
I was the epitome of the Jap. My nickname actually became the Jap Packer instead of the Backpacker.
yeah, Jewish American princess who'd never wandered alone, right? Who like stepped out of her comfort zone and went with these Australian backpackers, changed her whole mentality on backpacking, right? And now at this point, you had not met a lot of women traveling alone. And you'd essentially be carrying your whole life in your backpack, right? So how, I'm just curious, because you said something earlier about the universe and how it, had your back. I think there was something very interesting you said about, sort of the universe always providing, and I'd love for you to share that again.
So once I started, so originally my plan was I started in Europe because I was comfortable in Europe. I had gone there during college years, and I had met some people, and through my other experiences in travel with high school in Israel and also with the semester at sea. And I had also done like a Kontiki summer tour one time where I went like to 26 countries in 25 days or something ridiculous like that, or 30 days. Met a lot of people from different places, and some of my friends were doing programs abroad. And so I planned my first couple of months. And also Susan my friends had a few friends also in Europe. And so we planned our first few months basically hopping from friend to friend and country to country throughout Europe. And it was a very familiar feeling. It wasn't really backpacking yet. It was very familiar. We were staying in people's nice apartments and most of the time, and going out to dinners, and people were treating us because we were, on a budget, and we were still having kind of a parallel life to how we lived in America. And then we went over to like Western, where I went to Romania, and it was obviously a bit rougher there. And even it was still Yugoslavia at the time, but we went over to some of those areas which were not as posh, but still clean and upkept and sort of easy, although less expensive than other places. My second stop was Africa, and the way that I planned Europe and Africa was I decided to go to the two most expensive continents first, and then see how much money we would have left, to do the rest of the world per se. And what I realized in Africa was, I think I even realized it a little earlier, but I started to see it in Europe when I was traveling through once I got into the hostel world. And there's this kind of a parallel world that flows next to the fancy tourist, and then there's a tourist, and then there's a traveler. And once you sort of peek into that traveler flow, there's this incredible world and this river of energy and universe flowing like you cannot even imagine exists. And it's right there, right next to everyone else. But unless you tap into it, you have no idea it exists. And you once you're in it, you're just, your mind is like, what? Like, how is all of this happening for me? Everywhere, everything is opening, every door is opening, every experience is here, and I can do it all. And it's not expensive, and you don't need a lot of money, and you just need to be smart about, you know, looking out for yourself, and a little bit of planning and talking to people, and trusting yourself to know who to trust when you're, you know, to know who you can and can't trust. Because there definitely are, you know, good people and bad people everywhere. But once you're in that flow, the universe provides, and the most incredible gifts and experiences. And through one person, you meet others, and every person you talk to opens a new door. And throughout the beginning of my travels, as I met people, we would write in journals, and we would take notes of people's addresses and phone numbers. And people were starting to get email addresses at this time, but the internet cafes were sort of few and far between. But you would stay in touch, and people would say, you know, oh, if you're coming to Australia, or, you know, stay with my family, even if I'm not there, you know, I'll call me and let me know, and my mother will host you, or my sister will host you, or my cousins live in Timbuktu and they'll take you, or Botswana. I have the best friend who has a game ranch there, or Sri Lanka, you know, you'll come, you met my daughter and she's getting married next year, come to the wedding. You know, all of these things happen, and if you say yes, the world opens for you.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you're in Europe, with your friend, and you're traveling through Europe, and it's you know, in a sense, like you said, getting your feet wet, and then it's time to go travel to the African continent, right? So tell us about, you know, where you land in Africa at first, and basically, you know, what happens with you, your travels, and your friend. Paint us a picture.
So I have a super funny story that I actually forgot to mention to you earlier. But
Yeah.
when we first got to Africa, we flew in a very peculiar manner. But when we left, and we flew from we had a pit stop in Malaysia, and when we got there, there was the first flight out of this brand new airport in Kuala Lumpur. So we had to, our luggage got tagged and whatever. We were going to Cape Town, and it was winter. It was summer in Malaysia, and it was winter in Cape Town. But we didn't really realize that it was the other, you know, and we didn't think it got that cold. So we were wearing kind of like, you know, long like capri pants and t-shirts, and we get on the plane and we get to Africa, and they tell us when we get there that all the flight's luggage is gone. It all got tagged and got sent to a different airport, and we had no luggage. And we were like, but like all of our safari clothes that we had bought, our like special gaiters for our legs, and all of our stuff was in our bags. And we were like, our safari was leaving in a couple of days. So my friend and I look at each other, we were like, what do we do? You know? And so they gave us each like $50 equivalent. And they said, you know, you could go buy some, you know, toiletries and new clothes. We should have your clothes in a couple of days. So we look at each other and we're like, let's go have like the best dinner. There's nothing we can do, you know, like, let's just go eat at the best restaurant and we'll get drunk or something. And we won't worry about this. So we go out. Oh, and and it was freezing outside. So when we got off the plane, so we grabbed a bunch of the blankets off of the airlines, the Malaysian Airlines. We grabbed a bunch of blankets, and I took a pair of scissors, and we made like a poncho out of a top, and we made like wrapped around the thing like a towel out of the shower underneath, and we put the poncho over. We looked like ridiculous purple dressed dolls. And we go to like the nicest restaurant in Cape Town. It was called Panama Jack's in the waterfront. And we're dressed like these moronic dolls, twins. And we're laughing our ass. We had wine and abalone. We were eating, we were drinking. We didn't care. We were loud. We were just, and there was this table of 4 women sitting next to us. Or not quite next to us, but close. And in some part of the conversation, I heard them make a toast to Miami. And I was like, I heard Miami. And of course I jump up and I'm like, Miami? Did you say Miami, like Florida? And they were like, yeah. And they're very proper South African. Well, yes, we did say Miami. And I was like, oh my God, we're from Miami. Where are you going? Forgetting that I was dressed like a moron, like completely forgetting how I looked. And I said, we're from Miami. Where are you going? And she says, my daughter got a contract modeling and she'll be on South Beach. I'm like, oh, my mom lives on South Beach. You have to visit her. She lives on Fisher Island. Oh my God, you have to go and she'll take care of you. Take a pic. I'm like, get your camera out, take a picture of us and show my mom when you get there. And she will do anything for you that you met me in Africa. You have no idea. And they're looking at me like, we don't want to know you and we don't want to know your mother. And I was like, I couldn't stop. And we ended up like sitting next to them and talking and talking and talking. And into the conversation, they obviously realized that, we were not as weird as we looked. And the mother finally, it was the mother and 3 daughters that was having the dinner. And the mother says to us, she's like, I must ask you. She's like, we noticed the attire that you girls are in. She's like, what's up with this attire? And we were like, oh my God, we forgot. Like, we didn't even know, but the airlines lost our luggage and we're here and we're going on the safari and we have no clothes. And she was like, oh, you mustn't. And she and one of the girls gets up from the table and they go out. I don't know where they go. And they come back and they had all these bags. And we were like, she's like, actually, she's like, the girls and I spent the entire day frivolously shopping for nothing that we needed. She says, you girls need all of this much more than we do. And she was giving us all of this stuff. She's like, you're about the same size as us. Take it. And we were like, no, we can't take your brand new clothes you just bought. Like, no. And so I said, okay, how about this? How about we all go into the bathroom? You guys change into your new clothes and you could give us the clothes you're wearing, your old clothes. So we are all in the bathroom of this fancy restaurant, stripping down, taking off our clothes, trying on each other's outfits, whatever fits you. Oh, that looks good on you. Oh my God, that looks so cute. And we walk out, everybody's wearing different stuff. We no longer have our towels on, our schmatza blankets on. We now have on their clothes and our clothes, and they're wearing new clothes, and we have all this stuff. And it was the funniest thing. I'm still in touch with these people, by the way. They're still very close friends of mine. And they did call my mother in Miami and show a picture of us. And so we did this. And when I told the lady where we were sleeping, she was like, oh no. She's like, you can't stay, there. That's dangerous. I'm like, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And she came and brought us bags of clothes, bags of stuff the next day. And she got on the phone with the airlines and was yelling and yelling. And she ended up getting our stuff back for us.
Wow, what a fantastic little tangent and an amazing story at that. No, it's fantastic. So you're in South Africa, right? And tell us about the plan, to travel Africa, the African continent at that point, and what happens with your friend.
So we took this quick, first safari that we did was like a backpacker safari. It was kind of introduction to safari. And on that safari it was amazing. And we stayed in tents and, it was kind of rough. But it wasn't horrible. But during that safari, I met these other people that had been traveling all through Africa that had done this thing where you buy one ticket and you could hop on and hop off from Cape Town to Kenya. And so, it was, I don't know, it was like $500. You buy this one ticket which was a lot of money for our budget. But it included as much transportation as you needed you could use it for a year. So you could literally get everywhere all throughout Africa. And it was safe, and you didn't have to worry about like the bus, taking buses or, little things that who knows how they worked and who would be on them. So we decided we bought the first leg of it, and we got into this thing, and it was kind of like being in the Army, and it was very rough, let's say the least. The accommodations, the ride, and I was like, okay, there was one roll of toilet paper that the driver would let everybody on the thing use. And we were like, why can't we just each have our own roll of toilet paper and go when we want? Why do we have to wait until the next person? I have to go now. I don't want to wait until 3 people come back from the toilet, the woods. And so we ended up all buying our own rolls of toilet paper. But it was things like that where they were kind of very weird and strict on their rules and how to do things. And even the food that they were giving us was special. And I went and said I was a vegetarian, and I would hoard tomatoes out of the dinner things to put in my tent because that was the only thing I would eat. I wasn't sure what they were giving us. But it was definitely rough, but we got to places that we would have never gotten to. And my friend was not happy with this little adventure. And once we got to Zimbabwe and some of those areas, she was like, I'm out of here. This is definitely not for me. And so we kind of parted our ways, and she went back and continued traveling elsewhere. And I wanted to do Africa because it was something that I found very empowering. Like every day that I would get through, I felt like I really accomplished something incredible. And the people and the experiences that you heard about there were so magical and so different than anything I'd ever heard or read or seen on TV or magazines. I'd never seen or experienced any of the things that I was actually living and experiencing now. And the feeling of empowerment and independence that I was building in myself was it was like a drug almost, like it was calling for me to learn more and to get more and to experience more. And I just couldn't stop. I was sort of like addicted to Africa. And so I spent, we had so many crazy moments and insane, really, moments. We had a moment where we ended up, our car broke down and the driver had to go get walk for days.
Before we get to that one, could I interject for just a moment? And when your friend decided to leave, right, could you tell us about that moment and the internal struggle that you felt? And, how did you deal with that? Was there fear? Tell us a little bit about that time and how you grappled with it and, how you decided to let the journey continue.
Well, definitely I was, in the middle of Africa, I was very scared to be on my own because had it been in Europe or somewhere else, I may not have faced the same fear, but because it was so hard, and the reasons that she was leaving is because it was difficult. And then here I am going to be by myself doing that. And I thought, can I do it? I don't know if I can do it. So I did end up going back to Cape Town and meeting up with some people that I had met there that were American living there and some South Africans that were living there. And I talked to them about it. And most of them had traveled extensively through Africa and had some knowledge. And they just said to me, this is it. This is your chance in life to do this. Do it. Just go. And you're going to be okay. And if you need anything, we're here. We're in Cape Town. It's not like you have to go all the way back to America. You can just come back here if you need to. And so I did it. I went back and I really kind of got into the whole backpacker. I rid myself of all my fancy stuff. I had nothing that was valuable because if you carry stuff that's valuable, you're more likely kind of going to get it taken away from you. So, or you lose it. So best thing is to just have the least amount of stuff that's of value with you and keep moving. And, I went into Angola and Rwanda. I trekked with gorillas. It was, these unbelievable experiences that I couldn't have even dreamed of. I didn't even know most of them existed in the world. And, here I was living it and incredible, really.
And this was over the course of how many months? So once the setback happened and, you had that pivotal moment where this American friend told you, no, you can do it. And you made that decision. Once you set out, how long were you on this journey for, up to Cairo and then so on and so forth? How long did that journey last?
I spent about a year just covering Africa. Yeah, I would say that might have been 2 months, so maybe about 10 more months just in Africa. And so, at some point I realized, oh my God, it's almost a year and I haven't even left Africa. And I can't believe I'm still out here doing this. I didn't even really think I would last for 6 months. And I was still doing it. I still had money. I barely spent, any money because, like I said, this universe, this river, this flow that was created by me and the universe was so bountiful, and the experiences that it led me to were just one after the other, more incredible and incredible. And so, I would do some work on farms, and I would, we worked with injured elephants, we worked with rhinoceroses and lions, and I birthed the lion cub. And, these opportunities that you would have were just staggering. You couldn't believe it, really. And every day I would wake up, I'd be like, this is my life. This is my life. I'm so happy. And for the first time, really, I had really found joy in being me, and not who I was or what I was doing, but really in my soul, it was me and how I was finding really joy and happiness.
Yeah, and I just want to point out to the audience that you had 2 months on the African continent, and then you had like this harrowing experience that you didn't know if you were going to continue. And then you end up continuing for 5 times the amount of that time, 10 more months, and just losing yourself, in the universe, and finding so much joy that I feel like, a part of me has traveled back in time to be with you in that moment. And like, if life from that moment on sucks, you have the memory of this amazing time that you can keep tapping into, right?
Absolutely. 100%. I always say that. I'm always like, you know what? If I ever get sad or anything, all I just do is close my eyes and think of a day in my life at that time. Any moment. Not every moment, but most of the moments were incredible.
Wow. So basically, you shared with us how you helped to birth a lion. You saw these the famous gorillas in Rwanda. I think they're called the
silverbacks.
Silverback. Tell us some of the other highlights of just the fascinating sights and experiences that you had. Whatever comes to mind.
In Ghana, I got to spend some time in like a tribe where, there was nothing, no electricity, no mirrors, no running water. You had to go to the river and collect water in buckets and carry it back. And they put mud on, we put mud on our skin and to cover from the sun. And, it was mind blowing. You live from the earth. The only thing is from the earth. Every single thing you get, you grow your own food, you kill your own animals, you take care of everything from the earth. And it was incredible. I was with the Maasai. I saw the Great Migration in the Masai Mara, and just the incredible magnitude of nature. And it was reminding me that I lived on a planet, like a real, like Earth was a real planet, and it wasn't just a big city. And and you got to see life in its most raw form, and nature in its most raw form, and how it's supposed to work, and how nature is when it's when you live in nature. And it was incredible. I mean, everything, and the ancient lives, in Egypt and in Morocco, and you see history, and you understand that they had all these incredible technologies way before computers. They were able to do a lot of the things that we think is amazing now through technology, but they also did things like that based on whatever they knew. And just, it's so hard to explain how incredible traveling is, and how empowering it is to do it alone.
As a woman,
I guess. I mean, I don't know what it's like to do it as a man, but doing things alone afforded me so many invitations that I would never have received had I been with another person. If I was with somebody, number one, I wouldn't have talked to as many people as I did, because I would have had somebody to be talking to all the time. And you walk into some place and you kind of, instead of feeling like a loser that I'm alone, I felt empowered that I had the opportunity to talk to anybody that I wanted to. And it's a real shift in your paradigm and how you live your life.
Yeah. And do you feel as though in this journey, where you lost yourself, that in that moment, throughout that time, or even after in your life now, when you have problems, right, that you grapple with, Does it help you sort of put things into perspective based on how you saw, the Masai Mara live or the people in Ghana live?
Oh,
Talk to us
absolutely.
a little bit about that wisdom that you gained.
I mean, most of my friends will tell you I'm the one who, never gets upset or nothing gets in my way. And I do get upset, but nothing really stops me. I don't. When I feel a struggle, I find a way around it. I'm the go-to person for solutions, for sure. Um, I can think fast because of all of these experiences, because you're put in situations that you can't even fathom. You learn to get out of it or figure out a way around or solve the issue right away. And it is an art, and it is something I think maybe I may have had a little bit of it all my life, but I certainly fine-tuned my execution skills on getting things done. And you definitely learn to problem solve on the go, think out of the box, and you experience there's always a solution, and Earth heals, and you can usually find your solution within yourself. You just have to take a moment, take a breath, look at the situation, assess what's going on,
Mhm.
and solve it.
Yeah, fantastic. And it's funny as we sort of draw today's conversation to a close. You are a writer as well, right?
Kind of, right?
And you wrote a poem when you sort of, well, on a few occasions, but you wrote one basically when you sort of came back and to share with your people. And I remember you sort of reciting it to me during our last conversation, and it was just so beautiful to hear because I could hear how you had changed and how that experience had changed you as you came back home to Miami to then share this new version of yourself with your friends.
Yes, yes. Like I was going to dance to the beat of a different drum. I remember saying that.
Yes. Yes. And having the confidence to dance to the beat of your own drum,
Yes,
irrespective of the world around you.
absolutely.
Ah, well, I cannot tell you what an honor it is to call you a friend, to sort of, witness this amazing life that you've led. And I know that people who are listening today and who are going to be listening long after you and I are gone are going to be reminded of, sort of the power within that we have to choose to step out of our comfort zone, to embrace opportunity, and to be changed by it. So thank you so much, Rochelle, and thank you so much to our audience for joining. Until the next episode, I wish you infinite love and light.
Get
Thank
out
you.
there and do it. Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Get Out of Your Comfort Zone series. I hope it moved you and inspired you if you are feeling stuck with something in your life. If you would like to further connect with our guest, please see their contact in the description. Please consider taking a moment to rate this podcast. Please also consider showing us some love on your Instagram story. You can find our info in the episode description. Until the next episode, I wish you infinite love and light. Thank you so much for tuning in.